Hey fellas, so M11, right? This is a set that I got a fair amount of stuff from. Honestly, I might have more M12 right now than I have M11, but that's okay. It's good. M11, honestly, like M10, M11, M12, I think they've all been good core sets. I really do. As you can see, the cat isn't gracing us with her presence today. I don't expect her to. She's hiding off, sitting on a shelf in a bookcase. Hiding behind a few boxes of magic cards, stuff that I've already sorted. So, yeah, M11. Not a bad set at all. So let's start talking about it a little bit. Where do I want to start? I start with white all the time. Let's start somewhere else. Let's start with the artifacts and the lands. Just for poops and giggles, right? Now, since I wasn't too familiar with M10, because I didn't draft much of it, didn't see much of it, you remember how relatively small my stacks at M10 were. There are going to be some cards that I'm going to think were new in M11, but weren't. So, they were new to me. They were new to me. So, if I misattribute them as being new to M11 when they were actually in M10, I apologize. But, stuff happens, right? So here we have Elixir of Immortality. It's a 1 to play artifact, 2 colors, and tap it. Gain 5 life and shuffle the elixir into your deck. Oh, and shuffle your graveyard into your deck too. Yeah, that's fun. I like it. First off, it's life gain done right because it's theoretically repeatable life gain. I guarantee if you had 4 of these in a deck, you would irk the hell out of people. I mean, just pee them off to no end. And that's the whole thing. Life gain is generally bad. Repeatable life gain that's cheap, like this is, different story. That's life gain the likes of which will work. That is also a great card for casual players who don't have a lot of cards or don't have a lot of copies of certain cards. Okay, you've played your card of Death and Destruction, your opponent countered it with a cancel, or it hit the board, it was a creature and it got Doombladed, or it was an enchantment that was like really important for your deck, but you only own like 2 of them at this point, and your opponent naturalized it. You pop this, you reshuffle it back in. So like for the same reason back in the day of Chronicles and the like, Feldon's Cane was a card that actually had something that resembled monetary value because it had demand. People wanted them. Any other common in Chronicles was going for like 10 cents to a quarter. Feldon's Cane was going for like 50 cents to $1, depending upon where you went. Because it was popular with the casual crowd. And it's technically better than Feldon's Cane. I mean, it's not strictly better, because the Cane was 1 to play, and you tapped, sacrificed, and exiled it to shuffle your graveyard back in your deck. So it required a total investment of 1 mana. This requires 3, but it also gains you 5 life in the process, and it also shuffles itself back in as well. That's the fun part. So it's a nice fun card. Voltaic Key was reprinted. This was an interesting one. It's 1 colorless artifact. You pay a colorless and tap it to untap the target artifact. This is interesting. People, when they saw this, they had all sorts of crazy conjectures about what was going to be going on with it, especially when Scars of Mirrodin was announced, and blah, 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 blah. And to the best of my knowledge, it actually has not been up to the power card that a lot of people were expecting it to be. Because this card was, back in Urza's block when it was first printed, this card was nutty. But on the other hand, we're also looking at an environment now where we don't have things like Grim Monolith and the likes to untap and produce extra mana, blah blah blah, Stone Golem You know, he's just in here because he's a solid. He's solid. He's a 4/4 for 5 colorless, and he's an artifact creature. Today we've got like Bonebreaker Giant in red in M12 for the same converted mana cost and power toughness, but he's giant tribal instead of golem, and he's also not an artifact. Being an artifact is interesting, artifact creature overall throughout the history of the game, because there are a handful of removal spells, mostly in black, that won't touch artifacts. Terror, for example, would not touch artifacts. Fear effects, and even to this day, any intimidate. Artifact creatures just look at you and go, yeah, and? It's like, no, show me what I'm supposed to be afraid of here, guy. You know? But he was fun. He was decent and limited when you could get your hands on him, because you know he's a good-sized body that'll go in any deck. Aside from that, though, no, he's nothing to get too excited about. Though there was also some interesting things you could do with golems in Scar's Block. I mean, especially when you got the splicers at the end of Scar's Block, right? But hey, you know what? I mean, he's not an exception. Like I said, he's not an exceptional card. But if you want to make a golem tribal deck, you can do it. He'll have a home. And I'm about to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. Woo. Yeah. Ooh. Gargoyle Sentinel. He was an interesting card. He's a 3 mana for a 3/3 defender. You pump 3 mana into him, and he loses defender and gains flying till end of turn. He's funky. I kind of like him. I've always been fond of the Gargoyle tribe. They've predominantly been artifact or blue or white or all of the above. I know there was at least 1 or 2 artifact creature gargoyles that were tricolor in Alara block. You know, kid science, fun stuff. There's a gargoyle coming up in Innistrad who also has a funky ability where he's like I believe it's a defender and indestructible. He's got defender and he's indestructible so long as he has defender, and you can pump some mana into him, I believe it was, and he loses defender and gains flying till end of turn. It's interesting. I'm not going to spoil too much on Innistrad. The entire set's been spoiled on Wizards' website already. So, there's fun stuff in it. Let's just leave it. Probably going to mention it 1 or 2 more times in here. Sword of Vengeance. It's a Chroma sword. It's a Chroma Angel of Wrath sword. It's 3 colorless. It's an equipment. It suits up for 3 colorless. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. First strike, vigilance, trample, and haste. Basically everything a Chroma had except for her 2 color protections, black and red. That's pretty keen. It's a nice piece of equipment. No, it's not any of the swords of this and that. You know, it's not Sword of Feast or Famine. It's not Sword of Body and Mind. It's not Sword of War and Peace. It's not Sword of Light and Shadow. It's not Sword of Fire and Ice. But, hey, you know what? It's not a bad card at all. Though I don't think it's tournament worthy, sadly. But it's a great fun card. It's a great casual card. Warlord's Axe. It's generally not even casual worthy, really. But it's a decent limited card. 3 to play, 4 to suit up. Equipped creature gets +3/+1. The mana cost is a little, especially on the equip, is a little bit prohibitive, but you can't argue with the effect. I mean, it's something that if you can get your paws on one in a limited game, you do it. Unless there's something like else that's really impressive in the pack, but you know, it's not bad. It's reasonably solid, but I don't think I'd really use it in Constructed at all. And that's the key. I mean, for the most part, most sets these days, let's be perfectly honest, the vast majority of the cards in the booster pack are either for the casual crowd or for limited. You open a booster pack, you will generally get out of, what, 15 cards in a booster pack? You'll generally get 2 cards, maybe 3, that are tournament playable, and the rest is jank. The rest is Timmy bait, deck filler, stuff for tribal, limited cards, cards that really are never going to see play outside of draft or sealed. That's what it is. Sorcerer's Strongbox, another lovely example. It's 4 colors, it's an artifact, you have 2 colors, tap, flip a coin. If you win the flip, sacrifice the Strongbox, draw 3 cards. That's good and limited, and that's alright if you've got some sort of a coin flip focused deck. Many years ago they printed a card, I believe it was in the original Mirrodin block, called Crack's Thumb, I think it was, where whenever you flipped a coin, instead flip 2 and take the result of your choice. There was also an enchantment with Goblin in the name, Goblin something or other, I don't know. Was it Goblin Bomb? I don't remember. But basically it was whenever you flip a coin, you put a counter on it, and you can remove, like, if it has a crap ton of counters on it, you can sacrifice it for 20 damage or something crazy like that. It was a weird thing. Crystal Ball. Now, here's where things get funky. It's 3 colors to play. It's an artifact, 1 color, and tap, Scry 2. Scry, if I recall correctly, was introduced in the original Mirrodin block. It was a really good mechanic. It's Scry X. Look at the top X cards of your deck. You may put them back on your UV. Blah, blah, blah. Let's try this again. Scry X. You look at the top X cards of your deck. You may put them on the top and or bottom of your deck in order of choice. That's not bad. I mean, that's actually, it's a pretty solid mechanic. I mean, it's deck manipulation. It's not perfect, but yeah, you know what? It's still solid. A couple of special lands. Mystifying Maze. It's a non-basic land. It taps for mana. It does not come to play tap. So right there, you've got some good selling points, right? 4 colors, tap, exile target attacking creature an opponent controls. At the beginning of the next end step, return that creature to the battlefield tap under its owner's control. Now, here's some interesting things about Mystifying Maze. Number 1, it would be better if you could target your own creatures. That's number 1. Number 2, if your opponent has stolen one of your creatures, it's a cheesy way to get it back. It's like, oh, you're attacking me with my creature, I'll Mystifying Maze it. It's exiled, end of turn, comes back into play under my control, because I'm the owner. And tap. Oh, look, it's my turn now, it taps. What else? It's good for making a creature shed an enchantment, or drop its equipment. It's got uses. It's more of a casual card. I'm pretty sure it's got a home in EDH, where it's kind of sort of a budget replacement for things like Maze of Ith. Sunpetal Grove. I think these kinds of quasi-dual lands were in M10 as well. It taps for 1 mana of. The Sunpetal Grove is green or white, and it comes into play tapped unless you control a forest or plains. And you've got these you've got one of these for each allied color pair. In M10, I believe, definitely in M11, obviously, they're in M12, and plug your ears for about 5 seconds. They now have enemy colored pairs coming in Innistrad. That makes me happy. Let's just continue going left. How's that sound, guys? Doing it backwards today. Armored Cancrix, it's a 2/5 for 4 and a blue. It's nothing spectacular. It's a common. Want to say it was new in this set. I'll be perfectly honest. The only reason why I put it here is because I remember being at the pre-release, and the first time I saw it was while drafting at the pre-release, and I had to do a double take the first time I saw it because I read the name too quick, and I thought it said Armored Cervix, and I'm like, what? Oh, okay, never mind. And I had to laugh because it was just, wow. You know, sometimes you just read things too quick and it says something you doesn't, and when you do that, you know, things will say things that you don't think they say. And that's when you got to stop and like, what? Oh, never mind. Forget I said anything. It's a gigantic crab. It's not an armored cervix. It sounds like some kind of medieval prophylactic, I believe the word I'm looking for is. Diminish. It's a blue. It's an instant. Target creature becomes a 1/1 till end of turn. It's very similar to Turn to Frog in M12. Except Turn to Frog is technically a little bit better because it removes special abilities. This does not. So if you turn a creature into a 1/1, if it had Death Touch, it still got Death Touch. If it had Infect, it still got Infect. Mass Polymorph. This is an interesting one. I really don't know what to make of Mass Polymorph. I really don't. You sacrifice all of your creatures, and then you reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal an equal number of creatures as to what you just sacrificed to Mass Polymorph. And you put those creatures into play. And and shuffle the rest of the cards you revealed back into your deck. I really don't know what to think of it. I really don't. I mean, I wish I did. It's 6 mana. I mean, it's a powerful effect. But like I said, I really don't know what to think of it. I don't know if to say if I should say it's good, if it's bad, or what. I've never seen anyone even make use of it. So what's that tell you? You know, I mean, I've just never seen it see play. Time Reversal. 3 and double blue sorcery. Everyone shuffles their hand, graveyard, and library into their decks. Draws 7 cards. Exile Time Reversal. It's I believe it's kind of a modern take on Time Twister. It's kind of interesting. As far as I know, it doesn't see play anywhere. Sleep. I have no idea if this sees constructed play. It wouldn't surprise me one way or the other. This is a bomb card in Limited. Or at least it was. You know, I don't think anyone's doing M11 drafts anymore, right? 2 double blue sorcery. Tap all target player's creatures. They don't untap during their next untap step. That's awesome. Yeah, tap all your dudes. I'm swinging. I'm swinging with the team. Are you still alive? Okay, go. Take a turn. You done with your turn yet? Cool. My dude's all on tap. Do I have enough to kill you? Yeah, I think so. Good game. Sleep hurts people. Water Servant. This is an interesting one. It's a 2 and double blue for a 3/4. You pump blue mana to give it +1 -1 or -1 +1. What I think is really interesting about this is people don't actually think about it by looking at it, but it is kind of a cousin to Morphling, which, in addition to having those abilities and being a base, I think Morphling was a base 4/4, or was it a 3/3, or was it a 3/4? I can't remember. Morphling also had the ability to give itself Shroud, and I believe Flying as well, and to untap itself. Yeah, so this is basically like a distant cousin of Morphling. Mechanically, it's a distant cousin of Morphling. Aether Adept. It's a 2/2. When it hits the board, return target creature to owner's hand. It's a slightly up-costed version of Man of War from Visions, which was a 2/2 for, I believe it was 2 Coulson of blue, When it came into play, return target creature to owner's hand. So this is a colorless and double blue as opposed to 2 and a blue, so it's less splashable, but it's still a solid creature. It's a solid effect. Nothing wrong with it. Phantom Beast. We have a 4/5. When it becomes target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. It's an illusion. Now here's the fun thing. People think of this mechanic right now as being, quote unquote, the illusion mechanic. Yeah, it's an illusion. It becomes target and dies. Now if you go back, for example, when I talk about like revised, especially when I talked about the blue cards, I did when I was going through revised one day, I did a 2-part update where I actually had like 2 parts of it, and I did some obscure references. For example, I called the first part Use Your Illusion because I was talking about blue and there were a bunch of illusion creatures in there. None of them had this mechanic. Part 2 I called Enter the Machine because I was talking about artifacts mostly. As a side note on that, when I said Use Your Illusion, it was kind of a double thing because many years ago Guns N' Roses came out with a double album that was sold in, rather than being, you know, one album with like 2 discs as an example, it was 2 discs sold separately. There was Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. However, when going into the artifacts, rather than saying Use Your Illusion 2 when I'm talking about artifacts, I decided to you know, use a Pink Floyd reference and say Welcome to the Machine. But anyways, yeah, it's not this particular mechanic. You know, if it's targeted, you sacrifice it. It is not originally a blue mechanic. And some people sit there and go, "What? What are you talking about?" It was originally a black mechanic. You first saw it, I believe, it was on Skulking Ghost or Skulking Spirit in Mirage. At least that was the first time I saw it. So this was back in the mid-90s. It was a black mechanic. And even as recently as Time Spiral, you saw it on Skulking Knight, which was a 3/3 flanker with that same drawback for, I believe it was 3 mana, 2 and a black, I think. You've seen, this has been on black cards a lot of times. At least 3 or 4 times, I want to say, over the years, before it showed up on blue cards. And before it showed up in blue in its card form, you had the Tetrahydrox in the middle set of Ravnica. Guild Pact. I had to stop and think about that one. In Guild Pact, it was 3 and a blue or a red for a 3/3 elemental that when it became targeted, you returned it to your hand. That was interesting. Tetrahydrox was annoying for everyone at the table, really, because your opponents had couldn't cast removal on it, and if they had a repeatable way to target it, you either constantly recasting it, or it was just sitting in your hand doing nothing because you didn't want to bother investing the mana in it again. You know? But whatever. So yeah, illusion mechanic started in black. Tome Scour. They've been trying to push mill as an alternate win condition the last handful of years. There's a lot of self-milling cards in Plug Your Ears if you don't want to hear it in Innistrad. Okay, you can unplug your ears. Yeah, I honestly don't think anyone's plugging their ears, but whatever, you know. Most of my videos only get like less than a dozen views. Normally somewhere between 6 and 8 tops. Though the first one's had over 1,000 views. You know, episode number 1 has had over 1,000 views, and that's kind of funky. But that aside, Tome Scour, it's a single blue sorcery. You mill your opponent. You mill target player for 5. Actually, it's a little bit more better because it says target player, not opponent. On account of the fact that you can hit yourself with it. So if you're playing graveyard effects, you can go, yeah, I mill myself for 5. Next turn, I rip one of these creatures out of the graveyard and throw it on the board. Good evening. Some people have noted that depending upon what color you're playing, throwing a creature in the graveyard is better than having it in your hand. which sometimes is true. Speaking of milling, they had a cycle. I don't recall one way or the other if the Planeswalkers were reprinted in M10, or the original 5 Planeswalkers. I think they were, but I'm not certain. Don't quote me on it. But I know they were in M11. As well as, and here's the fun thing, they printed a series of, a cycle of cards. There was a common and an uncommon in each color with the Planeswalker's name on it that was somehow thematically linked to the Planeswalker. And this is nice stuff, right? We got Jace's Erasure. It's a colorless and a blue. It's an enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, your opponent mills a card. Kid science, fun stuff. This doesn't actually have Jace's name on it. I don't even know if there was the uncommon card for Jace. I'm drawing a blank, actually. Oh yeah, Jace's Ingenuity, which was 3 and double blue for an instant where you drew 3 cards, I want to say. It wasn't bad. I don't know if it's ever seen tournament play or not, but yeah, it wasn't bad. Mind Control, 3 double blue, gain control of enchanted creatures, enchantment. It's basically Mind Control for 1 more mana. Mind Control, brain fart. Control Magic. It's Control Magic for 1 more mana. So, take note of that, fellas. Over the years, the mana cost of Control Magic and Counterspell have both gone up by a colorless. 4C, here's another example of us having Scry in core set. It was originally in Time Spiral block. It's a 3 and a blue sorcery. Scry 4, then draw 2. That's pretty nice stuff. There also was another card. It was I think it was like a 1 to cast or a colorless and a blue. I can't remember. I don't even recall if it was an instant or a sorcery or not. And you scry 2 and draw 1. It was a miniature 4C. And it was a really good card. And one of the things I discovered while making decks a while ago is I actually didn't have enough of them for my uses. Go fig, right? Go fig. Auguriel, it's a colorless and a blue for a 1/1 flyer. When he hits the board, scry 3. Not bad. Conundrum Sphinx. Now this is a fun card. It's a 4/4 flyer for 2 and double blue. Whenever he attacks, each player names a card, then they reveal the top card of their library. If it is the name card, it goes in their hand. If not, it goes on the bottom of their library. Now, here's the fun thing is, he works great with Scry. I mean, really great. And, that's awesome right there, because you got a couple of good Scry cards in blue. 3, really, overall, I think. Plus, you've got the Crystal Ball. Conundrum Sphinx was nice. I don't think he saw any real competitive play, but, hey, it's not bad. Moving upward to black. Barony Vampire. We had a vampire theme going on. Vampires were a major tribe in Worldwake, Zendikar block. And so they, they had this going on too. So they echoed it in the core set. Barony Vampire, it's a 3/2 for 2 and a blue. It's since been replaced by a ghoul with the same power, toughness, and mana cost in M12. Whoop-de-doo, right? Child of Night, it's a 2/1 lifelink for 2 mana. It's not really a bad card. It's vulnerable, but it sits there and says, throw some equipment on me, please. Bloodthorn Vampire. It's a 1/1 for colorless and a black. Sacrifice creatures to give it +2/+2 till end of turn. It's not bad. It's alright. Oh, look, it's Captivating Vampire. He's a 2/2. Other vampires you control get +1/+1. Tap 5 untapped vampires you control to gain control of target creature. It becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Oh, yeah. Then we have Planeswalker cycle stuff here. Black, we have Liliana's Spectre. It's a 2/1 flyer for a colorless and double black. When it hits the board, each opponent discards a card. This can work a couple of different... I mean, it's no Hypnotic Spectre, period. End of statement. But then Hippie was, like a rare, and this guy's a common. So I can understand him not being Hippie. I don't believe... he's not in M12. For that matter, Liliana's not in M12 either. She's out. She's not in M12. I'm sure everyone's heard this by now. Innistrad spoiler. Liliana of the Veil in Innistrad. Yay! Yeah, but she got replaced by, was it Soren Markov, I believe? Yeah. Liliana's Caress, calls on a black enchantment whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Fun thing on that, it's basically a lower casting cost version of Megrim from Stronghold originally. It's been Megrim was reprinted in core sets a couple of times. Megrim did damage instead of loss of life, and it was 2 and a black instead of 1 and a black. Okay, well, you may have noticed me rushing through the last few cards. That's because I noticed the battery was going out. Unfortunately, it kind of died on me. So this is all going to get spliced together and then thrown up on YouTube when I'm done with this video. Happens. It was my own fault. I should have charged the battery yesterday. But you know what? I mean, whatever, right? You know, it happens. Black. Continuing black. Reassembling Skeleton. It's pretty new at this point in the M series. It's an 1/1 for Coulson of Black. Instead of regeneration, it has a graveyard recursion ability. In a lot of ways, this is better. I mean, you can sacrifice it over and over again. I've noted in draft that anything with that you can sacrifice this guy to, like for example that Bloodthrone vampire we saw earlier. Yeah, he goes good with stuff like that. These days we've got the what's it called, Plague Swarm or whatever the heck it is. It's a 2/1 flyer that gets bonuses when you sacrifice creatures. Goes nice with it. Nantuko Shade. This was a power card back in the day. It was originally in, I believe it was originally an Odyssey block. It's a 2/1 Shade for black. Power inflates on a 1-for-1 ratio with every black mana pumped into it. It's a good card. It's a solid card, but I don't recall hearing about it becoming a tournament staple. Just didn't hear about it, Maybe it didn't happen. The Titans. I don't know if they were an M10 or not. I don't recall. Way one or other. But the Titans are all good cards. I've got like one. I've got at least one in each color hanging around. They're just strong cards. And that was a sneeze. Excuse me. As I said, they're all strong cards. They're all 6/6 creatures for 4 and double green. The Blue Titan taps creatures, and I believe they can't untap. And the ability of each Titan triggers when the Titan comes into play or attacks. That's fun stuff, right? Grave Titan gives you a pair of 2/2 black zombie tokens. Oh, and he's a Death Touch. I want to say the Blue Titan has another ability as well. Trample? Not certain. Pretty sure it's not Flight. The Red Titan is damage. Does direct damage. I can't remember how much or if you could divide it off the top of my head. The Green Titan tutors for land. The White Titan, in addition to having Vigilance, lets you recur permanents from your graveyard with a mana cost of 3 or less. Pretty sure the Green Titan had Trample. I don't know if the Red Titan did or not. I honestly can't recall. Maybe he had First Strike. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. Kind of wish I did, but that's alright. Not terribly relevant right now. All you need to know about the Titans is they're really good cards. If you crack one in a draft, take it. Just take the damn thing. Red! Ancient Hellkite. We got dragons. We got great big flying engines of death. It's a 7 mana, so it's really high on the curve. 4 and triple red. He's a 6/6 flyer. You can pump red for 1 damage to target creature or creature defending player controls, but you can only use this ability if he's attacking. Whoop-de-doo. I turn him sideways. I burn out blockers. I turn him sideways. I burn out potential counterattacks. Whatever. Who cares, you know? Now we'll skip Shiv's Embrace. It's a reprint from Urza's Saga. It's a good card. 2 and double red for enchantment. Aura. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 flying and fire breathing. It's a good card. And saying that about an aura is not an easy thing to do. It's really good and limited. Constructed, not so much, but it's at least still marginally playable, you know? Demolish, 3 and a red, destroy artifact or land. It's a sorcery. It's not all that. I mean, I suppose for a common that does the same thing as Pillage and is more splashable, I guess it's okay, but still not wild about it. Arcrunner, it's a 5/1 haste that you sacrifice at end of turn for 2 colors and a red. Just reprint Ball Lightning. Really? Is that so difficult? Reprint Ball Lightning. I'd much rather have a 6/1 trample haste for red than this guy. Magma Phoenix. It's a 3/3 flyer. When he goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, does 3 damage to each creature and player. He can go from your graveyard to your hand for a cost of 3 and double red. It's not a bad card. It's pretty good and limited, though he can kill you himself, you know. But bada bing, bada bang, bada boom, you know. It's just the Phoenix Tribe has been around since, I want to say Legends. You know, you'll have a set every handful of years. They'll print a new Phoenix. Actually, these days it's been like every year or two. It's a most of them have a return from graveyard mechanic on them, but most of them have been marginally playable at best. But this guy, it's not bad. Thunderstrike, colors in a red for an instant that gives a creature +2/+0 at first strike till end of turn. I believe these days we have Slaughter Cry, which is +3/+0 at first strike, and I think it costs an additional colorless. I'm not 100% certain on that. It's okay. It's solid. Strangely enough, for a red card, it's more defensive in nature than anything else, because first strike prevents you from trading creatures. Which is one of the funny things. As much as first strike does tend to be a red mechanic, strangely enough, it's more of a defensive mechanic. Go fig, right? Pyretic Rituals. Rituals eventually migrated out of black in the original Mirrodin block, I believe it was. They started migrating into red. And here we have Pyretic Ritual. It's a colorless and a red for an instant that adds red to your mana pool. We've had a couple others printed over the years. They're not necessarily bad cards, but you have to build around them. And they're, of course, horrifyingly infamous for their usage in Storm decks. For those that don't know, Storm was this horribly broken mechanic. Was it in Onslaught block? I want to say it was an Onslaught block. Onslaught Odyssey. What came after that? Mirrodin. I want to say it was an Onslaught block. I'm not 100% certain. But basically it was a card with Storm. A Storm was a triggered ability. So when you played the card with Storm, when it went on the stack, it made a copy of itself for each other spell that had been played that turn. So basically, one of the primary tactics of Storm decks was to cast a crap ton of ritual spells. You know, I cast a ritual. I cast a ritual off the ritual. I cast a ritual off of that ritual. Off that ritual, I play a draw card effect. I drew a ritual. I play a ritual. I play another draw card effect. I draw a couple cards. I play a ritual. I play a ritual off of that ritual. Then I play a card with Storm. I get like 15 copies of that card in addition to itself. Even if you're running counter spells, you can't stop all of them. You're stopping one, maybe two, unless you're running Stifle. Pretty much the only way to stop Storm, there weren't many, was to Stifle, that is counter target was activated or triggered ability, or whatever the heck Stifle was. Basically, that would shut it down. You have to stifle the Storm trigger. Because if the Storm trigger resolves, you're done. You're just plain done. Goblins! We got Goblin Chief, and we got us a Goblin Lord. Colorless double red, 2/2 haste. Other goblins get +1/+1 haste, kid science, fun stuff. Ember Hauler, he's a 2/2 for red. You can pay a colorless to sacrifice him for 2 damage to our creature or player. I kind of like it, but I have never come up with a way to really. I never really thought of a way to abuse him. And just looking at him, you know, he looks pretty balanced. Dare I say, he's too well designed to be horrifyingly abused. Goblin Tunneler, he's a 1/1 tap creature with power 2 or less, is unblockable. I don't know where he was first printed. He's basically Dwarven Warrior with a lower casting cost. He's pretty good, in limited at least. He works well with you know, things like Fiery Hellhound and such. 2/2 with built-in fire breathing. He also works pretty well with the 2/1 lifelink vampire. Kid science, fun stuff. So there's that, you know. Ley lines. Ley lines were printed in this set. The overall ley line mechanic is that if you start the game with a ley line in your hand, you can reveal it and start with it in play. These are not the original. Most of them are not the original ley lines from Ravnica block. The red ley line is players can't gain life and damage can't be prevented. Interesting. I remember the original red ley line gave you the ability to like pay extra mana whenever you cast a red spell for damage or something like that. But yeah, I mean, some of the ley lines are pretty interesting. The blue ley line of Anticipation, from this set, gave all of your spells flash. That's nice. Fire Servant, he's a 4/3 for 5 mana. If a instant or sorcery you control would deal damage, double that damage. That's kind of funky. I'm sure he was abused in casual decks, but I don't recall him ever having a tournament presence. Oh well, right? Lightning Bolt's still in print. Unfortunately, it's not an M12, which kind of makes me sad. But it was nice to have Lightning Bolt back for a couple of years. It really was. It was incredible. Oh, but hey, guess what? Hey, Fire Servant, Lightning Bolt. Yeah, let's tap red for 6. It's good. Oh well. Chandra's Outrage. It's in limited. It's a solid removal card. I could see it easily being used in casual play. I don't think it's tournament viable, but it's a 2 double red instant, 4 to a creature, 2 to the creature's controller. Interesting thing about it is you only need to be able to target the creature. It does not say that it does not actually target the creature's controller. That's not a targeted effect, guys. Kid size, fun stuff. And of course, going along with that, we have Chandra Spitfire. You know, the 2 Planeswalker themed card. It's a 1/3 flyer. Hey, look, it's another flyer in red. How do you like that? For 2 in a red, whenever an opponent is dealt non-combat damage, Spitfire gets +3/+0 till end of turn. I heard of people in casual games making Spitfires redonkulous huge. Just redonkulous huge. Yes, I'm making up words now. Don't even laugh at that. Shakespeare used to make up words all the time. Before Shakespeare, assassination wasn't a word. Yeah, what do you think of that? Anyways, green. Guy's Revenge. 5 colors, double green for an 8/5. Haste. Can't be countered. Can't be the target of non-green spells and abilities. By and large, Guy's Revenge just sits there and exists for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to give blue a gigantic middle finger. You can't counter him. You can't bounce him. There's a lot of things you can't do. He's nasty. Cudgel Troll, he was a good card. Fauna Shaman. Fauna Shaman is interesting. Caused a lot of excitement when it first came out. I don't think it ended up being a huge tournament card. I don't recall it being a huge tournament card. But it caused a lot of excitement when it first came out. It's a 2/2 for a colorless and a green. Yeah, pump green, tap and discard a creature to search your library for a creature, reveal and put it in hand, then shuffle. That's not bad. Yeah, I'm going to pitch this creature. I don't need to get one I do. Get rid of this creature I can't catch to get one I can. I could easily see Fauna Shaman going in like a black-green reanimator deck. I'd be all over that one. Yeah, sure. Fauna Shaman. I'm going to use Fauna Shaman, and I'm going to discard this huge creature of death and destruction. It goes in my graveyard. And I'm going to tutor for another creature. I show you Coffin Queen. Next turn, I play Coffin Queen. And then I use Then later, I used Coffin Queen to reanimate the huge creature I discarded to search for the Coffin Queen. Ha ha ha! Keep saying it's fun stuff, right, guys? Yeah? Yeah? Come on. Metotic Slime. Metotic Slime, whatever you want to call it. This is an interesting card. It's a 4 and a green for a 4/4. When it dies, you get a pair of 2/2 token creatures, and when either of those token creatures dies, those provide you with a pair of 1/1 creatures. This thing can be really annoying on the defense. I mean, just even on the offense, it can be really annoying. Alright? Prized Unicorn. It's a 2/2 for 4 mana with a built-in lure. It's kind of interesting. I mean, you know, it's block this, or you know, you're blocking nothing else. It's block this. It's pretty much every other creature you have is a block. Pretty much, you know. Pretty much. Hornet Sting. This is a very unusual card for green. It's you pump. It's a green. It's an instant 1 damage target creature or player. It's direct damage. You don't see that in green very often. Off the top of my head, direct damage in green, there was Onyaro Bee Sting, Yavimaya Bees, this, and Thornthallid. Stormseeker was specific to players and keyed off of cards in hand. And then, of course, there's Hurricane, which was damage to flying creatures and all players. But yeah, direct damage, or ability to do non-combat damage, pretty rare in green. The next thing you have on that is Tracker from the Dark, who would exchange damage with another creature. He'd do like 2 damage to a creature. That creature would do damage if he completes power, or maybe it was the damage was keyed off of his power, off of Tracker's power. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. Tracker used to be on the reserve list. I don't know if he still is. They printed an homage to Tracker in Time Spiral block. And plug your ears for 5 seconds if you don't want a spoiler. They've got the fights mechanic in Innistrad. mostly in green. You're good. Okay. Greater Basilisk, 3 double green, he's a 3/5 with Death Touch. Death Touch and Core Set. Kid Science, fun stuff, kill you things, blah blah blah. Acidic Slime, it's another Death Toucher. It's a same mana cost as the Basilisk for a 2/2 as opposed to with 3/5, but when it hits the board you get to nuke an artifact, enchantment, or land. It's kind of nifty. Yavimaya Worm, trample in the Core Set, got rid of Crawworm. Crawworm's been obsolete for so many years, it's been a jank card for so many years. Yavimaya Worm, let's be perfectly honest, is far from a tournament competitive card either. But it's better than Crawworm. It's been around since Urza's Block. I mean, come on, guys. Why did it take so long? And I know I've whined about this before. Protean Hydra. Oh, dear goodness me, oh my. This is an awesomely fun card, especially in Limited. It's a X in green for a 0/0. Comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to it, prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters from it. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is removed from it, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it at the beginning of the next end step. This is funk. And when I say this is funk, I mean it's funk. Because, wow, I would use this guy in like draft, and this is a mechanic that we've seen before in either Odyssey or Onslaught Block. I can't remember which. Those two just get mixed up in my head. We had a bunch of, there were several creatures that would come in with ++ counters on them and a 0 toughness. And whenever damage would be dealt to them, you prevent that damage and remove a +1/+1 counter. Though in this guy's case, it's remove that many counters, right? The fun thing about those creatures and the Hydra itself is that it's prevent damage and remove counters, not remove counters to prevent damage. So if you've got no counters on it, the damage is still prevented. For example, there have been plenty of times people have like, there are a couple of times when, using this thing, it's just like, yeah, I swing into your guys. So they're like, okay, I gang block him. I throw all these creatures in front of him. He is going to die. Giant Growth. Okay, well, I Giant Growth him. Well, I still got, or heavens forbid, it's just like, you cast Protean Hydra at ridiculous, relatively small. He's like a 3/3 or something. And your opponent says, I swing with my 6-power dude. I throw the Hydra in front of him. It's like, okay, I Giant Growth him. Your guy's going to die. So is yours. No, he's not. He's going to take 6 damage. I'm going to remove 6 counters. There's only 3, so I remove those. He's still got a toughness of 3. He lives. And he gets 6 counters at the end of the turn. Kid Science. Kid Science. Fun stuff, right? Garruk's Companion. It's a 3/2 trample for green. It's really solid. I mean, yeah, it's a common, but it's really solid. I mean, overall, head and shoulders better than Grizzly Bear. I mean, for converting a colorless mana and the casting cost into a green, you're getting an extra point of power and trample. That's good stuff. It really is. Garruk's Pack Leader. It's a 4/4. Whenever, oh, that's the shadow on the card. It's the camera. Hey. Yeah, there's only so many ways we can do this, so we can't really, well, not with the angle the light's at. I'm not going to move everything all over the place. But yeah, it's a 4/4 for 5 mana, 4 and a green. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the field under your control, draw a card. Well, it's may draw a card. So you don't necessarily gonna mill yourself out with it. Oh yeah, and there's Garruk. Garruk has been widely acknowledged as probably the best designed of the original 5 Planeswalkers. Liliana Vex was a little bit on the weak side. Chandra was really weak. The original Jace was kind of ho-hum. Ajani was kind of ho-hum. Garruk was good. As they came out with later Planeswalkers, most of them were either unspectacular, needed to be built around, or redunku good.
Like, you know, Jace the Mind Sculptor? Yeah, Jace the Mind Sculptor was redonky good. I own two of them as well. I've got two Jace the Mind Sculptors hanging around. I had them in a deck. I'm probably going to take that deck apart because it wasn't a deck I enjoyed playing. Whatever, right? Let's move on to white before I get too much more sidetracked. We got a 5/6 flyer, Angelic Arbiter. Players basically have a choice during their turn. They can attack or they can cast spells. They can't do both. That's kind of funky. Correction, opponents have that choice. You don't need to make that choice. You're good. You're good. And I got a sneeze coming up. But it's stubborn and doesn't want to go. So don't be surprised if I sneeze at some point randomly in the next minute or two. Elite Vanguard. I think he was an M10. I'm not 100% certain. He's a 2/1 for white. Originally, a 2/1 for white was a rare called Savannah Lions. Now it's an uncommon human soldier. Hey, you know what? Power creep happens. Be thankful it's going in. How can I put this? A little bit of power creep, it's not a bad thing. A lot of power creep, or power creeping in the other direction, can be bad. I mean, for example, in Kamigawa block, you had some really, really horrifically bad creatures. I mean, bad. I mean, as bad as, you know, like, some of the legendary creatures and legends were. You know, like, what was his name? Tobias Andrian? Yeah, the 4/4 for 3 white and blue. You know, for 3 colors, a white and a blue, who was a vanilla 4/4 legend. It's like, why is this guy worse than Serra Angel? Why is this guy worse than Air Elemental? He's harder to cast than either. And strictly worse than both. But whatever, right? Armored Ascension, one of the few good creature enchantments. Enchanted creature gets flying and +1/+1 for each planes you control. That's pretty solid. Leyline of Sanctity, this one gives you Shroud. Well, actually, no, it gives you Hexproof. You can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. You have Hexproof. You can still target yourself. Rock Egg, it's an homage to the old Rock Egg that was a red card. The original red card, I believe, was a 0/4. This is a 0/3 defender. In either case, when it dies, you get a 3/3 token creature with flying. Kid signs, fun stuff. Squadron Hawk. He's a colorless and a white for a 1/1 flyer. When he hits the board, you may search your library for up to 3 cards named Squadron Hawk, reveal, put them in hand, shuffle. This guy was a key component in the Cobblade deck. He still is, but hey, guess what? Cobblade's cycling out, what, 2 weeks, if that? Innistrad pre-release is this coming weekend. Innistrad hits the street end of the month. And at that point, M11 is going to be rotating out of Standard. It's new. It will continue, of course, to be legal in Extended, Modern, Vintage, Legacy, pretty much every casual format there is. Blah 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 blah. Kid science, fun stuff. It's Squadron Hawk. It's a reasonably solid card, so you know you can't complain about it. That, and of course, when you have the ability to like scry and so forth and whatnot at your deck, you scry, you find stuff you don't like, blah 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 blah. Or you, for example, with Jace the Mind Sculptor, you fate seal yourself effectively, and you know you look and you're like, wow, there's a whole bunch of stuff here I don't want, and then you cast a Squadron Hawk, search for 1 Squadron Hawk, shuffle your library. You don't even want to cast the 2nd Squadron Hawk. You really don't. You just save it for when the top of your deck looks like garbage again, and then you cast him, tutor for your 3rd Hawk, and not cast that either, because what you're trying to do is refresh the top of your deck. What you want is the shuffle, not the creature cards. Well, Stormfront Pegasus, it's a colorless and a white for a 2/1 flyer. We've got some good flying going on in white in this set. Wild Griffin, 2 colors and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. 2 colors and a blue. 2 colors and a white for a 2/2 flyer. I'd be really shocked to see a blue card that costs a blue card. Oh, holy crap, I can speak English, I really can. I don't know what I'm saying. I would be shocked to see a white card with a casting cost of 2 colors and a blue. Not 2 colors and a white or a blue, 2 colors and a blue. That would be the funniest thing to see, though, wouldn't it? To see a card at a casting cost of, like, 3 colors and a casting cost of, like, double black. Then it has, then the first entry is text. This is a white card. What? That would be awesome. Palace Guard, 2 and a white for a 1/4 that can block any number of creatures. That's awesomeness. If you can find a way to make him regenerate or make him indestructible, whatever, he'll do funk. He will do funk. Mighty Leap, fun card. Calls in a white, instant, target creature gets +2/+2 flying till end of turn. In my opinion, that's overall a massive improvement over. I can't remember the name of the card. I can't remember the name of the card was. It had a. It was in. As I was saying, yeah, I exceeded my file size limitation for the camera, so it cut me off. Didn't notice I was talking that long, so this is going to be a long update. Oh well. No, you already know it's a long update. You've been watching it for over a half hour now, right? Without even skipping around and saying, hey, playing around. Anyways, Mighty Leap, it reminds me a great deal of this card from the original Portal set. It was reprinted in a Tournament Legal set a few years later. I can't remember what the name of the card was off the top of my head, but it gave a creature. It was a white sorcery. I want to say it was 2 and a white to play. It gave a creature +3/+3 and flying till end of turn. The original illustration in Portal was a Tony DeLizzi illustration. It was this young angel girl. She had like bronze skin and white hair with white wings coming off of her back, and I want to say she had like a brass or a bronze breastplate on, and she had a hand outstretched, and there was a hummingbird hovering over her palm. It was a beautiful illustration. It really was. But this +2/+2 and flying, just a little bit cheaper to cast, so you're looking at less of a power boost, but it's also an instant, which makes it really, really nice. Inspired Charge, 2 and double white for an instant. That gives all creatures you control +2/+1. In a lot of ways, it's better than Overrun. In a couple ways, it's worse. Overrun is 2 and triple green, so this is cheaper to cast. Overrun is a sorcery. This is an instant. Overrun gives every creature you control +3/+3. This is +2/+1. Alright, it's almost as much as a power boost, significantly less toughness boost. Overrun gives your creatures trample. This does not. However, the reason why I say this is often better than Overrun is because it's easier to play, and it's an instant. You can bust it out when your opponent's not expecting it. Yay. Ajani's Mantra, it's an enchantment. During your upkeep, you gain 1 life. Whoop-de-doo. It really doesn't sound all that exciting, and for the most part, it's not. Even by life gain standards, it's not a good card. Unless you play it with Ajani's Pridemate, which is a 2/2 for a colorless and a white. Whenever you gain life, it gets a +1/+1 counter. Not for each point of life you gain, just whenever you gain life. So, for example, if you were to pop an Elixir of Immortality for 5 life and reshuffle, you'd only gain 1 counter on this guy, because it's only 1 instance of life gain. He doesn't care about quantity, he just cares that it happened. But yeah, there have been decks built around this guy. I mean, it's a pretty obvious guy to build around. They're not bad. Serviceable. Serra Ascendant, it's a 1/1 lifelink for white. If your life total is 30 or more, it gets +5/+5 in flying. She's very popular in EDH, where your starting life total is 40, so quite frequently she just sits there and says, "Hi, I'm a 6/6 flying lifelink for white. That's pretty strong. That's pretty strong. So, I mean, yeah, there's M11. I thought it was a great set. Just like I said, all of the M sets so far have been really good in my opinion. Are there things I would have done a little bit differently? Yeah, obviously. I mean, I would have reprinted Pillage instead of that crazy red card that's Destroy Artifact or land for 3 and a red. Or I would have reprinted Stone Rain instead. Reprinting Lightning Bolt was great. The Titans are good cards. I mean, there's a lot of good, fun cards in here. I definitely would have put in more land destruction effects, though to counter that, I would probably have put in something like Crucible of Worlds and, you know, 1 or 2 other cards to protect against stuff like that. But bada bing, bada bang, bada boom, right? You know, it's, I'm not in charge of these things, and sometimes that's really a good thing, you know, because, you know, like a lot of people, sometimes I have difficulty distinguishing what I think is good and what's good for the game. And the powers that be, at least for now, are deciding that land destruction at less than 4 mana is not good for the game. I disagree. That's me. And I know I've hemmed and hawed about land destruction a lot over the past several months, so I'm going to shut up on that. As much as I don't want to, I will. So I'm going to get these spliced together. It's swiftly approaching 10 o'clock at night. I don't think these are going. I don't think this is going to go live on YouTube before midnight. So, crossing the fingers and hoping I can get it up on YouTube and cross-published to the message boards on Wizards before 1 a.m. local time. You know. All right. Catch you guys later. Be good. Be safe. Etc. Etc.